Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve, and today we're in the Undead Crypt, but this video is specifically about the mod for Dark Souls 2 that I'm working on, that I am calling the Shadows of Drangleic, which I thought was a pretty good name. Pretty proud of that one. Pretty good, because it is about adding dynamic shadows using DS2 lighting engine, and adding dynamic shadows and removing baked lighting from all of Dark Souls 2, which is something I wanted to do for a long time, but you couldn't really do it through normal means in Dark Souls 2. You could enable shadow casting, but eventually it would just hit a limit and then it would turn off. And then you also had a limit with like point lights, and obviously Dark Souls 2 lighting engine, that mod has allowed me to enable shadow casting on way more things. So for instance, when you bring up the editor mode, this is what I've been doing essentially for the last week or so, in between working on Dark Souls Remastered, and then Bloodborne here and there. But basically, you pull up Undead Crypt Shadow, let's pull up the game map editor. So we're in editor mode in Dark Souls 2 lighting engine. It's awesome. You get to fly around and it kind of shows what's currently being rendered, and you can go to object editor. So I've actually been going piece by piece and actually adding these to the shadow map. You can actually add that to the shadow map to be rendered, and then by default in DS2 lighting engine, most everything has local shadows, which is basically shadows that are being cast by shadow casting lights, right? And so the adding it to the shadow map is basically for sun shadows, right? And so obviously in the Undead Crypt we do not have sun shadows in the traditional sense. We have darkness, but you'll see here it's actually having the shadow cast off these pillars from these shadow casting lights, and some of the lights were not set to be shadow casting, some were. Some I'm replacing with lighting engine lights, because you can actually do that, which is so cool. So shout out to Dark Souls 2 lighting engine, because they actually, you can see the lights being rendered here, and they also have this nice circle you can click on. And so you can actually see the light itself, and then you can actually create a light override, turn on cast shadows, volumetric shadows. You can change the actual volumetric fog fall off. That's another thing as part of this mod. I have been toning down the volumetric fog a bit, because I think it can be a little strong. So I've been kind of tweaking that in areas to make it a little bit less strong, to have a nice fall off with it. Of course, there's a checkbox right here for it. Sometimes I've been just turning down the intensity on it instead of doing the square fall off. But it's been so much fun to mess around with these point lights, and then you can save the level. And let's go this way. There's another cool thing I did. Oh yeah, we need to light this, don't we? Yes, let's light the crap out of that. Do I not have a bright or no way. Okay, we got to go back to the bonfire real quick. Although I'm not supposed to produce light here, I'm going to do it anyway, because another mod I installed is actually a mod by me, and this is just used for developing the mod, which is I disabled the enemies. I just deleted them. It's a mod I made like I think last year, but it's super helpful for Dark Souls 2 mods, because when I'm making them, I just don't have to run away from enemies. I don't have the benefit of like DSR gadget or DS gadget for like Prepare to Die edition modding. I don't have the benefit of that. So I actually, because you can disable enemy AI there, right? Here, not as easy. Yeah, so here I enabled shadow casting on the little part that's the metal part that's actually holding the chain, and I turned off shadow casting for some of the little brazier, is that what you would call it? That it actually had shadows that were popping up around here and looked not great, so I actually turned those off. And this, I think, is actually not doing what I want. So you hit snap the game camera and it will go to wherever the game is looking, which is fucking great. Okay, so we're in Undead Crypt entrance. Okay, so let's pull up our shadow map editor, because I think here it's not doing the local shadows correctly. So let's make sure we have everything turned on, which I think we actually do. Yeah, okay. This is a bit of a bug with Lighting Engine currently, where it seems to, the local shadows toggle seems to sometimes work, sometimes not, and then sometimes turn things off. And so I have reported that to the creator of DS2 Lighting Engine, just to see if it gets, because I'm sure it's just a bug of some sort. Because sometimes it'll turn off the local shadows, and sometimes it won't. So we'll see. But yeah, let's go through here, and let's actually light. Let's light this. Let's light this candle. It's so nice not having enemies though. Oh my gosh. So let's go through here. But yeah, mainly it's just enabling dynamic shadows like crazy, removing baked lighting, and fixing small things that you'll notice in some of the levels that, because there's a lot of issues that come with removing all the baked lighting. And this is actually similar to like Dark Souls 1 in that when you remove the baked lighting, scene transitions can be more difficult because you'll see the dynamic shadows move, because when they go to one area to another, it'll use a different filter parium, which will control where the shadows are being rendered from or what the X and Y coordinates are. And so it'll basically just fly across the screen. The dynamic shadows will shift whatever the new coordinates are. So I have to basically go in and fix that. So let's light this. And I'm going to piss off. I think it's going to summon the one guy. But this is going to show. Also, I have the Black Knight axe, and it's pretty fucking sick. I think it summons the guy, right? Because I didn't delete the invaders. Like, those still happen. Okay, maybe not. Maybe they don't care. We'll see. But so this is a good example of where I think the volumetrics here are a little strong. And it's also not shadow casting. So basically we're going to snap to game camera. And we're going to open up the game. Yeah, there's Undead Crypt Shadow. I guess I'll do that's the ditch. I think the ditch is the one I've been using. Technically, the levels here, you should use like the shadow one, but I've already kind of been using the ditch. So we'll do that one. It's fine. They're loaded. And so let's first go to Lights Editor. And let's check on this one here. So it's already overridden. And it is actually, it does say it's set to cast volumetric? Really? Oh, wow. So it already had the square fall off. Ooh, okay. So that's what it was originally set at. Oh, yeah. Volumetric fog intensity 5. Oh, we're going to turn that down a bit. Yeah, I think it's a bit too strong for me. So I tend to, that admittedly personal preference, but so I'm going to turn that down a bit. It does say shadows are turned on, which would mean that the reason why it's not casting a shadow is that, now it is casting a shadow on the player. You can actually see that when I turn it off. So there is actually a shadow being cast on the player, which is nice. We don't need volumetric shadows. I haven't noticed that being terribly noticeable on like point lights like this. If it's like a skylight, I've noticed, yeah, volumetric shadows make a lot of difference there. So let's go to our object editor. After this, I'm going to show some of the results that I've already done, so you can see how many actual shadows are being cast now, because there's so many. There's more than any other mod I've ever done. Easily. Okay. So here you go. Look at that. So now it's casting a shadow from the light, and then it's making like a little geometric shape, which admittedly doesn't look amazing, I don't think. I don't know. It's probably worth it. We'll stick with it for now. Now I can also edit these while I'm here. Yeah, first let's edit the lights. Oh, there's actually two? Okay, so there's a light here, and then it looks like the one down here is actually a LE light. That's weird. Okay, so that's point light 2, point light 3, or okay. Interesting. So this is that. Yeah, why is... I don't know why there's two. So I'm gonna turn that one off. Well, actually, oh, modding is fun. I think I think I prefer this one to that one, so I'm going to turn that one down. So this is another thing of like, I don't know why there's duplicates, but there is. Interesting. Oh crap, I changed the wrong one. Let's get that. Cast shadows, not volumetric, square fall off, yes. Oh, maybe they're connected. It might be. Light component, intensity. No, that's not the right one. Okay, so it's having a bit of an issue where now it's not letting me select between the two. Okay, well, such is life, right? Such is, yeah, it's like they're connected. Okay, anyway, so let's go to Object Editor and add these to be local shadows, which I think this is another case where it doesn't seem, yeah, it doesn't seem to be working. Because now you're enabling the local shadows and nothing's changing. That has happened, so I'm hoping that will be able to be fixed, because there's sometimes where it just doesn't really do it. All right, so let's go. So basically that's the process that I'm going through, is going through every single branch in the game. Every item, every object, everything, and enabling the shadow casting, or at least making sure that it's already shadow casting. Some are, some aren't. And it's beyond what I was able to do in my prior mods. So I was kind of inspired to be like, all right, let's actually do this. Let's do the mod I've wanted to do for a long time. So let's go to Majula, because I actually another thing I did is I disabled some of the point lights that were present. So in here they actually had, if we go into editor mode, let's go level Majula shadow, I believe is where it's at. We'll see. Sometimes I made a mistake and I would do my changes in level Majula instead of level Majula shadow, but such is life. Yeah, so there was actually a point light you can see that's placed right above here. Yeah, and so basically it was set to like around here, and I didn't like that. So I basically turned it off. I was like, nah, don't like that. So that way the sun comes in naturally, which kind of hits like over here, which once again you can see they're higher resolution shadows. Because if we actually go into the standard lighting preset menu here, I do have the lighting overrides disabled for Majula, as I tend to prefer the way the base game looks, closer to the unmodded game in terms of the overall appearance. So I do, this mod, part of it will be disabling them on a case-by-case basis. Once again, personal preference. Not saying one is better than the other, because it's just purely a personal preference thing. And if we go to the shadow settings, this is where you can actually, this is what's so great about Lighting Engine, is there's actually a toggle for disabling the baked lighting. And that's what's great, is you can actually just disable the baked lighting, which in this case, it's kind of difficult because it's still rendering the better shadows. And so it's kind of just being overlaid on top of them. But essentially the baked lighting ones, you'll notice here, like on this brick, when you turn the baked lighting back on, basically the brick is covered in shadow, even though right around it, clearly that portion of the brick should not be shadowed, right? Because there's light right here and all around it. So it's like, well, okay. So when you disable it, you get more accurate shadows because it's actually being cast. It's actual dynamic shadows. Not that I have any issue with baked shadows. That's actually something that I get commented pretty often, which is understandable, where people are like, oh, does that mean you know, are baked shadows bad? And I go, oh God, no, baked shadows are great. Baked shadows are, you know, baked lighting is still, I would argue, the standard in the industry, because it's more performant and, you know, you can bake your lighting. But if we go here, and actually turn on the baked lighting again, you'll see once again it covers up certain areas that shouldn't be shadowed, and it makes them shadowed. This is a standard thing with Dark Souls 3, Dark Souls 1, where the baked lighting covered up more things in shadow than necessarily needed to. It also looks like they were essentially sort of like baking the ambient occlusion around these rocks, because you'll notice there's less ambient occlusion around them when you disable the light map shadows. So there was also a point light that was inside here that I ended up disabling. This is a good example where when you enable, now there's because the light map, you know, is also handling the color of the shadows. When you disable them, the shadows take on more of a, I don't know if I would say a more natural appearance, but the shadows sort of take in the light and the ambient light in general coloring, and so that's why they're less dark. And that's where I wonder if, yeah, sun shadow, oh, here you go. Oh, so they were turned down a bit. Ooh, okay. So, yeah, I just didn't have them set to 1.0. I actually do prefer 1.0 to be honest. Yeah, that's great. Okay, yeah, I actually do prefer that. Well, look at that. I actually fixed something while I was here. But a fully dynamically lit Dark Souls 2 is essentially what I want. That's what I want, and it is what I will have. Now, we're going to go to an area that will show off how many dynamic shadows there are now. Forest of the Fallen Giants, there's a bajillion of them now. Every Soul of Pursuer, Ring of Blades. Alright, well, I don't know why I got that. I'm assuming that has something to do with my my remove enemies mod. Okay, well, there might be a bug with that mod, but that mod's just for me personally, so I don't actually need to do anything with it. So now you'll see that there are so many tree and foliage shadows, and you can see the actual like rocks here. The rock face is covered in countless shadows from all the leaves, and it's just absolutely chock full of them. And of course, the shadows move with the grass. Of course, they're not going to bake the grass shadows, but yeah, you have the actual like leaves moving. And so I've manually gone through here, every rock, every tree, every branch. I probably missed something. But you will have shadows cast from everything. And a lot of things were not casting shadows. Even in my Scholar of the Second Sin mod, right? I missed adding shadow casting to things. For sure. There's no doubt about it, because the way that you do it is completely different. That's one of the main things I enjoy about working in Dark Souls 2 lighting engine, is that you actually get to keep playing the game while you're working on your mod. Sometimes I have to go out and actually like go into DS Map Studio to fix something, but like, oh god, I love when I added these leaves to be shadow casting. It's so nice. Now I'm sure people are wondering, is there going to be compatibility with other mods? I think that's my preference, is to do everything I can in DS2 Lighting Engine, because in that case it should have broad compatibility with other mods, because they'll be run separately, right? Like DS2 Lighting Engine is outside of the standard framework. Like Dark Souls 2 doesn't even know what's going on essentially, because it's just completely taking over the rendering engine from Dark Souls 2. And that's the general goal, is that way it won't have any compatibility problems. However, I'm still finding that there are things that I need to fix in DS Map Studio. Oh man, look at that parallax occlusion mapping. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, that's baked in, which is nice. There's a lot of enhancements that are already baked into DS2 Lighting Engine, so I'm simply just doing the shadows part and some of the baked lighting related things. But once again, that's DS2 Lighting Engine allowing that to happen. I'm just clicking the buttons and taking the time to go around and do it, which is kind of my general thing as far as modding. And for me, I'm just the biggest hoe for dynamic shadows ever. Now, it does create a ton of light leak issues, because like this area in here used to be super mondo light leaky. Oh, also I have I do have my player lantern. I had it turned off as I was kind of testing some things. So let's get that and make sure. Yeah, we're going to run across the log. Whoa, that was close. Okay, that was close. Let's see, because I turned on a fuckload of these trees to be shadow casting. A lot of them are already in shade. So technically with those, like you don't have to. But yeah, you can look at the bridge casting a accurate shadow over there. We have trees galore. Now the foliage, I'm actually letting most of the foliage do screen space shadows. And you can see as my character actually covers it, you can see the shadows disappear. They actually, shout out to Dark Souls 2 Lighting Engine again. The screen space shadows kind of fill in the gap. And I'm kind of using them on smaller things where I'm not spending the budget on sort of those shadows. Sometimes I turn them on, sometimes I don't. But the trees, yes. The trees are big enough that screen space does not work well for that, which is understandable. But yeah, you can see just an absolute ass load of shadows that are being cast in this area. They're everywhere. It's glorious. Like they're covering like every part of this map now, where before it was much more just kind of everywhere occasionally. Ooh. Oh, Bashful Ray. Really? Oh, Morningstar. Oh, damn. All right. I didn't know the Morningstar was this far in the game. I didn't remember that. And I think, let's see if this light got moved, because I remember moving this light. Yes, I did. So the original point light for this was actually placed over here, and I like how there's a cross through it, so that's the original point light. And I moved this point light, which is a lighting engine specific one, because you can move those. And I actually transformed it. So whenever you replace it with a lighting engine light, you move over to the left over here. You can actually hit transform, and you can actually move the point light. And as you can tell, I turned off the shadow casting for these bodies because I actually wanted the point light to be like almost within them. And if you turn on shadow casting for them, the lights bounce everywhere, or the shadows bounce everywhere, and it looks awful. So I did turn those off because I didn't like the point light being placed over here. I wanted it centralized on this bonfire of bodies to really give an accurate sort of light that was coming from it, and then cast shadows onto the environment. But yeah, I love, and you can see the local shadows move on these rocks. Now I'm wondering if it saved all my objects that I was enabling the local shadows on, because the creator of the mod had told me that, like, hey, by the way, most of them are, the local shadows are turned off. Yeah, you can actually see here. So this is how it's supposed to work. So you can see this cage here, and by default the local shadows are turned off, so it's not going to be casting a shadow from that point light. But if you then turn that off, you'll see now the shadow shows up. And there, ooh, actually I found a tree that's not covered. So that's how, this is actually a good example. You'll see this tree is being covered by the screen space shadows, which as I cover it with my character, the screen space is obviously covered, and so the shadow disappears. But you'll notice the shadow isn't long enough. The screen space does not work well for that because it actually, the tree is larger than screen space, right? So it's even without that, it's outside of that window. So if we go back in here, we go into Huntsman's Copse Shadow, Cops. Always found that name weird. And then we do Object Editor, Shadow Map Build, and then we add that to the actual shadow map. Boom. Now we get an actual shadow from it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. But also we have to remember that DS2 Lighting Engine is not like, it's not 1.0, it's not fixed, or it's not like fully finished, right? It's a beta mod, as I would say with any of my mods. Don't expect perfection. Bugs are going to happen, and you know, as I've said earlier, Dark Souls 2 Lighting Engine is still, I would say, probably the most impressive on a technical level, like impressive Souls mod of all time. Like I don't know that there's anything more impressive than Dark Souls 2 Lighting Engine, genuinely. And that will extend to Dark Souls 3 Lighting Engine when that happens. So yeah, let me know what you think. This was a long video of showing some of the issues I've run into, what my goal is of kind of enabling all dynamic shadows, which I guess I probably should have explained why I was doing this, because it does sound stupid in theory, right? It is. But it's a shortcut to higher quality shadows. Because the baked light maps, rather than rebaking all of the light maps for the entire game, which is what would be necessary to update the quality of those shadows, right? Because they're light maps, they're actual textures, right? And so the shortcut is essentially using the dynamic shadow system, which at first I was using just Dark Souls 2's built-in shadow system, and I was able to enable a lot of the dynamic shadows. But you commonly ran into an issue where it would just turn them off when it hit a shadow limit within the engine. So Dark Souls 2 Lighting Engine is obviously much more powerful, and so now harnessing the power of DS2 Lighting Engine, I can enable dynamic shadows to my heart's content. There are small bugs here and there that I'm sure will be squashed. But yeah, it's a shortcut to higher quality shadows. That's the long and short of it, or just the short of it. That's the bumper sticker, is that we can now have high quality shadows on everything and casting on everything, everywhere. And that's always been my goal for Dark Souls 2. Because it's always leaned heavily into the shadow casting more than I think any of the other games ever have. And so I want to live out that sort of, I don't know, that was what Dark Souls 2's original idea and methodology was. And so I kind of want to live up to that and honor that legacy through this mod. So I'm going to be working on it, in between my other mod projects. I probably won't stream working on this. Maybe I will. I probably will. I don't know. Depends on what you guys want to see, really. But Dark Souls Remastered, I do plan to work on bug fixing on stream. That was fun. I actually knocked out a good amount of bugs. So I'll be doing that again. I should be streaming here soon. Of course, follow me on Blue Sky. You can subscribe here on YouTube. And I usually make a post when I go live. On Twitch, twitch.tv/FromSoftServe. And yeah, also have a merch thing coming up, because I kind of got into that and then I kind of just let that languish. So I came up with a new site that I'm more excited about for merch, and will handle processing them better. So more info about that later. And also I have an artist I will be commissioning, a mutual that I'll be commissioning, and she's incredibly talented. And so I'd like to make Dark Souls 2 related merch around that. So stay tuned for that, and I'll let y'all know when that happens. So thank you for watching, and thank you for attending this rant session of a therapy session for me, and kind of what I've been working on. And I'll see you next time.